name is John White. I'm a management consultant from Calgary, Alberta in Canada, and my company Improve has been using Miro for over 3 years, thanks to Annie finding it on that wonderful late fall day back in 2018, 2019, something like that. So it's been over 3 years now. It's completely transformed the way that I deliver my work. My company is focused on helping organizations figure out the path of continuous improvement so they can constantly make their organization better over time. And I've created a new product using Miro called the Keys to Improve program and a team-based assessment called the Voice of the Teams tool, both using Miro and both leveraging Miro's amazing capability to bring people together and to effectively collaborate and make things better in your organization. So I wanted to get to a few host rules just before we start. Of course, you can keep your mic muted as we start to move through the presentation, but there will be a time for some collaboration. There'll be a time for some activities and a time for some questions. So when that time arises, you can feel free to pop off the mic and let us know what you're thinking and ask any questions that you might have. If you are looking at my shared screen, hopefully everybody does see my shared screen over there on the Miro board. I'm just going to highlight at the very top of the screen, on the Miro screen at the top right, there's a little button up here next to our icons with a happy face. If you hit that, that's the reactions button. And then if you go ahead and click any of those emojis, you can kind of let us know how you're feeling over the course of this event. You can also click the button to raise your hand if you find that you're struggling, if you're a little bit new to Miro and you want to get a little bit of help. We'll be more than happy to help you out. So if everybody wants to maybe try popping off a few of these little emojis here, just let me know that you found them. That would be fantastic. And remember that they're up there and you can use them to let us know how you're feeling. Awesome. I see them flying up. That's always great to see. So yeah, we have a question and answer area. I'll show you in a few minutes here, a little further on down the board. And because you're at your home office or place of business, all your fire exits and bathrooms should be where they left them. So make sure you follow your own rules in that regard. Well, yeah. Okay, let's fire through our agenda for today. We're going to go through our welcome, which we're doing right now. We've got a couple of pro tips to share with you. Some basic functionality that you can find in Miro that might help your early experience until you become a little bit quicker and more proficient in the tool. It's all pretty simple and straightforward, but we hope to share a few things with you. Thanks for that thumbs up. Then we'll go turn it over to Annie, and her presentation tonight on stakeholder alignment is kind of in two parts. The first is going to be a icebreaker that she's created, an event that involves sweet potatoes. It's one of the most fun things I've done in Miro, and we're going to have a good laugh getting out of that. And that so very nicely leads into her presentation, giving us a bit of background on the Project Management GameBoard, and then carrying us through the specific tips and tricks that she's got around stakeholder alignment. And we will revisit our sweet potatoes and use them as a bit of a discussion piece for our final activity of the night. We'll go through any Q&A. Would love to have some great rolling discussion. I'm sure everyone here has been involved in a project before. It'd be kind of strange if you hadn't been in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully we'll all have some good questions and we can leverage Annie's 30+ years of experience in that area. We'll do a bit of a retrospective and then we'll get it all wrapped up and signed off on time in about 51 minutes from now. So we'll do our best to adhere to that timeline so everyone can either go have some supper or get their day started, like our visitors from Singapore right now. Okay, let's move on to some pro tips, shall we? I'm going to bring everybody to me on the board. It's a great little function in Miro if you're a presenter like myself and you want people to be looking at exactly what you're looking at. So we are all here now in the pro tips area. I'm only going to cover a few of these just for time purposes, but for sure, if you need to come back and look up any of these tips and tricks, it's just in this big yellow space here on the board. My favorite one, my favorite function in Miro is the undo button. And a lot of people end up inadvertently moving something and it's like, whoops, I moved a background because we didn't lock it down as facilitators. We're human too, you know, come on, we make mistakes. So just hit the undo button. It's either Control Z, or if you're on a Mac, it's Command Z. Or if you happen to be looking at my shared Zoom screen, at the top of my Zoom screen, there's this little undo button up at the very top. There's also a redo button if you undo one step too far. So undo, Control Z or Command Z, great, great feature. Zooming, you might be curious as to how to zoom on the Miro board. The best way is if you're using a mouse and a keyboard, you can use your mouse wheel to just roll and you'll zoom in and out with the rolling of your mouse wheel. You can also hit plus or minus on the keyboard, or in the bottom right corner of your Miro interface, you'll see what zoom percentage you're at right now. I happen to be at 38%. And when I hover my mouse over that, you'll see a little menu bar expand, and you'll see the plus and minus buttons here to zoom in and out. So that's how you do that. Yeah, you're going to left click on things. If you happen to notice that in Miro, your mouse pointer is a hand instead of a pointer, that just means you have the pan tool selected, not the pointer tool. So the quick way to change that is toggle back and forth between those two things is the V key. That's your shortcut key. Otherwise, on your left-hand menu, at the very top, there's the pointer key. If it is blue, that means your pointer is active and someone was able to duplicate something on the board. Awesome. And then they undid. Hey, look, we're all Miro pros now. Way to go. So the pointer will allow you to select things, move them around, double click to type in it. That's pretty much as simple as it gets. So if anyone does have any questions about that stuff, feel free to make use of that raising the hand icon, and we will get a note over to you to figure that all out. I think that about does what we've got for the intro. So I would like to turn it over to Annie MacLeod. And if you've ever been to one of our Miro events before, you will recognize Annie because she is alongside me, the co-North American user group leader. Annie's got 30 years experience working in project management. Right now, she's a project management coach and mentor, and she has co-created the Project Management GameBoard, which is an amazing Miro-based tool that can guide even the most beginner of project managers to a successful project setup and execution. She's also the founder of Business Improvement Consulting Services. She's a good friend of mine. She's a mentor of mine. She's an amazing lady. Let's give it up for Annie MacLeod, and we'll get right into the icebreaker with Annie. Hi, Annie.
Hey, John. Thanks so much. What a great introduction. As John mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of the Project Management GameBoard, and Mel is also here. He's one of my partners in crime in developing the game board. So we're very happy to be here to show you kind of brief introduction of kind of one key aspect, because we've got a number of key activities that we do. This is one we like to introduce to clients when we're talking about stakeholders. So we'll get started right away and take you through this quick activity. So what we're going to do, you can see in the instructions I brought everybody to, is we want to just make sure everybody's comfortable with their Miro skills. So we're going to take a couple of minutes and build a sweet potato. So the first thing we're going to do is select the text box where your name is, it says name, and put your name there. Then select your favorite sweet potato, and you can start building of how you would like that sweet potato to look. We've got arms and legs and all kinds of different appendages that you can try doing that. So we'll take kind of, I think, 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll select our favorite sweet potatoes.
Yeah, we have a little workspace set up to the side that Annie will bring us over to, and everyone can grab a space.
Yeah. So shall we set a timer for 2 minutes?
Sure.
And I will get people started on their potatoes.
Excellent.
There we go. Time's up. So why don't we just take a couple more minutes, and you'll see towards the right that we've got kind of step 2, dot vote for your favorite. So pick up a dot and place it near the potato that is your favorite potato. It looks like our top 2 potatoes are Robert's and John's.
Woo!
So we'll see the significance of that shortly, but let's just grab each of those and put them in the space below. How's that? Basically, what you'll see is we have the Project Management GameBoard here. And what we've done is split the game board into 4 sections. So it looks like a game. And at the very beginning of the game board, in the top, we've got, does this qualify as a project? What we find constantly with clients is that's kind of the number one question of how do you define a project versus a process? And we have all the green steps that take us through the listen stage or initiating of a project. We look at the planning for a project or understanding. So really making sure we understand what our project is about, all the blue sections. We then have the purple, which is implement the plan, your collaborate stage, and then the last stage is reflect. So how do we make sure we do continuous improvement? Then at the center of the project game board is a culture of freedom and safety. So we're looking to create project teams and projects so that they can operate with a maximum freedom and a culture of psychological safety. So when it comes specifically to stakeholders, what I want to highlight for everyone is kind of for each of these different legs, kind of the key aspects. So when we're in that listen phase, there's kind of a whole bunch of things that we're heavily doing in terms of figuring out stakeholders. So at that beginning part of it, it's kind of twofold. It's either a project that's initiated by executive edict. You shall and you will go do this project. So it's pretty easy to figure out who one key stakeholder is. But then there's, in most organizations, there's a lot of competition for different projects. So it's really everyone, and everyone's got an opinion. So there's three parts of the game board where we look at those stakeholders. We make sure early on we are identifying the stakeholders. We're making sure for each of those individuals we understand their expectations and concerns, and we make sure we've got buy-in and success criteria. So this is more when we get into the collaboration pieces of how we develop and get consensus around how we're initiating this project. And that's where we're going to spend some time today in our exercise, is in that buy-in and success criteria aspect. But it's also important to remember that the other legs of the game board or other phases of a project of how things change when it comes to stakeholders. So the next key piece is when we're doing our understand phase is really, this is where you're trying to assemble your team. You're trying to get to that storming, norming, forming, and ultimately performing, because you've got a project team that you want to be able to optimize and work really well together. And this is typically where you do a project team kickoff. And we have a bunch of activities that we recommend around that kickoff. When it comes to, again, stakeholders, that's really the people aspect of developing your plan. So, and it's important to remember, again, from stakeholders, that that's not just your project team or the internal stakeholders. Lots of times you may have a resourcing strategy that involves external organizations. So that's a whole nother stakeholder group. And with that stakeholder piece, when we're managing those expectations, we cover that off in our pre-launch checklist to make sure that now we've got all the expectations from that very first stage aligned with this second stage of understand. So does our original idea that we had for the project align with the plan that we're coming up with? So, because a lot of times we talk about aligning stakeholders, managing expectations, not managing stakeholders. So far, so good, folks. Give me a reaction. Thanks, John. Then on our third leg, when it comes to stakeholders, the things that we're considering is we really want to have that culture of one team. We want everybody pulling together. And key parts of that is all the things around honest disclosure and how are we building high trust and people are coming forward and we know how we're managing our project and how we're being able to respond and how we're going to be successful. Oh, and the other thing I almost forgot too is it's important to understand that when you're in that collaborator implementation phase, you may be doing another team kickoff, because oftentimes the people that are creating the plan are not actually the same people that are doing implementation. So you may want to do multiple team kickoffs and have onboarding processes so that when you're bringing new people into your project, you're bringing them up to speed completely. Then even in your last reflect kind of stage of your project from a stakeholder perspective, now you're really focusing on the customer, the sponsor, and the project manager. And from our perspective, it's really important to understand the customer and the sponsor are not the same person. They have different expectations and we have to do different things for them. So the stakeholder considerations in this last piece are offboarding people. So we want to actually give people feedback on how they did on their project, what they could do better next time. We want to review and report lessons learned. That's another opportunity to engage stakeholders and adapt continuous improvement. And then getting that customer sign off that they also agree that our project is complete. So that's really a lot of the key aspects. And then the last piece too, when we talk about the culture of freedom and safety, this is really where we focus on the sponsor, the project manager, and the team, because we also advocate that regardless of your corporate culture, your corporate values, there's some organizations that don't spend a lot of time on values and culture, whereas we advocate if they aren't doing that, that doesn't mean that your project team can't adopt some of those practices. Make sure you build that culture of freedom and safety in your project team itself. And a lot of it is about walking the talk and being the example in the organization of what that good culture looks like. So that's a very brief bit about the Project Management GameBoard overall. So now we're going to get into our example and we'll be able to see how we use our sweet potatoes. So basically what we've got is we are the sweet potato mashup company, and we're a Netherlands-based company that actually makes edible sweet potatoes, just like the ones you guys just built. So these toys have become a hit across the Netherlands, and now we're looking to roll them out across Western Europe. The CEO has put all of us in charge of the project, making us the project team. So consider yourself voluntold, which is why a lot of projects are assembled originally, or at least the project teams. And so we're going to go through and assemble our stakeholders, all of this group, and start to prepare the plan to present to the CEO. So we've got a number of roles. So each of you is going to be an employee at Sweet Potato Mashup. And we've got the Vice President of Growth and Farming. We've got the Chief Potato Officer, the VP of Potato Profitability, or the VP, the Sweet Potato Picker, who's one of our subject matter experts, a Sweet Potato Order Clerk, another subject matter expert, Potato Assembler, who just ends up actually being our project manager, Quality Control Inspector, our QCI, and the Director of Logistics. So one of the other tools that we recommend, and you find this in the Miroverse, no, actually it's in Miro's template library, is the customer journey map. So we use this to be able to talk to people about what are those roles, what is their scope, what does that mean? So in our simplistic organization, we have 3 phases or 3 stages to our customer journey. Stage 1 is our sweet potato farming. We have sweet potato assembly, and then logistics and billing. And then these stickies just below that are some of the key steps in that journey. So what we're going to do is take some of our best potatoes and give you each a role. So John, we're going to make you the VP of Growth and Farming. And Robert, yeah. You're going to be our Chief Potato Officer. Although Robert had the most votes, didn't we?
It was a tie, but
okay, well, let's make Robert the project manager, because the most popular person should be the project manager.
I can't think of a better role for Rob.
Yeah, and we'll have Mina be the Chief Potato Officer. Tom can be the VP of Potato Profitability. And Mel, how about you be our Director of Logistics? Now, I lost.
Sounds wonderful.
Mina. Mina's our Chief Potato Officer, right?
That's right.
I don't know what that means, but
so basically, Mina, what you're responsible for is all that sweet potato assembly pieces. So we've got John that's responsible for farming all of our sweet potatoes, seeding them, raising them, picking them. you're in charge of all the orders and assembly and the quality control for all our sweet potatoes.
I'm not sure if I'm qualified for that,
Well,
but
fair enough.
okay.
We don't have a very robust screening process, so it's not about qualification. So one of the things we highly advocate for our clients to use in that stakeholder alignment piece is understanding those expectations from those stakeholders. And one of the key tools that we use is a project prioritization triangle. So that triangle has 3 attributes: time, scope, cost. Anybody who's been involved in project management has probably heard of those before. But the unique twist that we put on it is, realistically, in any project, you only get 2. People like to think they get all 3. The reality is you only get 2 of them. So we're just going to show you kind of how that kind of works. So what we would do is we'd start with John as our VP of Growth and Farming. So
Okay.
John, tell me where you would put your dot.
Well, I've written it on a sticky because I thought that would be helpful. But I would put my focus minimizing time and maximizing scope, because it's important to me as the vice president of growth to get our potatoes to market quickly and at as high a quality as possible.
Okay, so thank you. That's helpful. And then the way this works too is, like John has said, it's about time and scope. So what it means is minimizing costs. So to make sure we hit our timeline and to maximize that scope and quality, we will throw money at this problem to make that happen. So that's where John's sitting. So Mina, when we talk about your role, where would you put your dot? So if you take your dot and put it on that triangle, the pink one, where would you put that dot?
I would also put it at, okay, where would I put my dot? I would put it here.
Mm-hmm.
Here too, because I'm looking after quality and assembly, right?
Yep.
Yeah, assembly, order, quality. So budget's not my concern, really. I want to make sure that they're getting good quality and the best possible quality. I want to maintain the relationship with my customers. So I want to make sure that they will reorder. So yeah, I think.
Great. That makes a ton of sense. Cool. Now, who have we got next, John?
We have Tom, who is our VP of Potato Profitability.
Okay, Tom, where would you put your dot?
I would put it between, minimize time and minimize cost.
Mm-hmm. And why would that be?
Well, since it's a perishable product, I want to minimize time to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to spend as much as I need to get it to the customer on time. So maybe more over here. But I still have to be concerned about the budget.
Right.
Someone has to.
Yeah. Well, I could be the loss leader there, but I think I'll get hit with, I have to be sensitive to the cost, even though I'm trying to minimize time to delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And also, since the sooner I get it to them, the sooner I can bill them.
No, fair comment.
Mm-hmm.
Because we bill when we ship.
No,
Where did I pick that
absolutely.
up from? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to
Great.
invoice them sooner.
See, you have a career in sweet potatoes.
So I figured we'll save our project manager Robert for last. So let's see what Mel's got to say as the director of logistics.
Okay.
Let me unmute, and I put mine on a sticky as well. I'll bring it over here. I want to minimize time and cost. It's my job to get it to market. So I'm interested in speed, the speed to market. So minimize the cost of delivery and shorten the time to get it to bring it to market.
And when you say delivery, Mel, can you clarify if that is like the cost to get it to the customer or the cost of the project?
Oh, the cost to get it to the customer.
Okay,
Yeah, so I want to minimize the cost because that'll be built into the overall sale price or the wholesale price of the product.
oh, fair. Okay, that's a helpful clarification. So I think I've got, so minimize cost of delivery to the customers. This will affect the price in the market and time for speed to the market. Fair?
Yeah,
They
yeah, I want to
capture
get
what
it
you're
out to the
saying?
market as soon as it's, yeah.
Cool.
All right. And that brings us to our project manager who's going to figure all this out.
So Robert, where would you put your dot?
Right in the middle.
No, you don't get to. That's why it's white. You don't get all three. You got to pick two.
Oh my goodness. No. Well, if I'm thinking about my previous PMs, it'll be more about minimizing cost than minimizing time.
Okay, and why? Why is that important? Just like in your past experience, because of budget constraints, or talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, it's always about cost, build, hitting targets for all suppliers, supply chain, costs, and then to retail and expectations for sales and buyers, basically.
Okay,
Yeah.
so kind of expectations of the market type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, consumers don't want to pay more, but factory prices have gone up, labor has gone up, all of these things I'm thinking about. So reduce material costs, balancing out manufacturing costs, logistics, packaging.
Yeah, fair. Now, it's interesting because similar to some of the other pieces, we've got to be really cautious about, is this a project related type of thing or is it a process piece, right? So some of the items that we have here relate more to our process of producing sweet potatoes, right? So if we go back here, when it comes to, farming, assembling, logistics and billing, then some of those parameters talk about those kinds of things in that production.
Hi, my name is Justina Wu, and I'm calling from the VA.
So, I mean, and not that those are wrong, it's just important to understand. So the way we would handle this in our project is
inviting you to participate in a research study.
okay. I've got somebody.
Sorry, I'm dual share.
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm muting.
thanks, Robert. Yeah. So this isn't unusual, again, because we're not trying to teach all the people in this stakeholder group how to be project managers. But as John can attest to, is when it comes to the process attributes, we need to tease out what's the difference between process attributes and project attributes. So the way we would do this in our project is take these different parameters now and figure out, are those criteria to make our project successful or our process successful? So for example, minimizing cost is important. So we've identified that in Robert's note here. So what we might now do is make sure that we have a deliverable in our project to understand the market and competitive landscape as it relates to cost. So one of the things we'll have to do in our project to make it successful is make sure we understand that. Maybe we don't have competitive knowledge and stuff, and we would have to put that in our scope. So we'd probably make that a different color kind of a thing. But as we go forward and create our project plan, now we can take and translate these different things into project deliverables. So because we would have two things as our next step is we need to align all of these things. We've got, you know, a group of people that are on this top horizontal axis, and we've got people over here that are more on the left hand side, and it's like, okay, how do we get it to and negotiate so that we've got one thing that we can get everybody to agree to. So what we would do is tease apart all of those different attributes and find one place where everybody's needs can get met. Like right now, we know kind of 3 out of the 5 are kind of sitting towards this. So we would have a conversation probably collectively with all of this group to get everybody to understand of how do we move the scope of this project? How do we move the priorities into one place on the triangle? So how does that sit for folks so far? Am I clear about how you could use that triangle? Give me a reaction.
I know in projects I've been involved with, if you ask people in isolation what their priorities would be, they would tell you. But if you have it in a format like this where we're having a discussion, I would be much more willing to bend what I thought I wanted by hearing other people's expectations, goals, limitations. I might be, you know, definitely more willing to switch up my story to make sure that the greater good is covered rather than just my personal preferences.
No, absolutely. Very good point, John.
True.
Yep. So this is one of our key tools that we use in starting and initiating those projects and making sure that we get people on the same page. And the other part of it too is that we make sure we keep a line of sight to that priority as we move the project forward. So for example, if we said time and cost is our priority, we initiate our project, we go through our planning, we're all of a sudden now we're in implementation phase of that project, and we get a change request come in. So there's something very significant happens to our scope. So it comes from a senior executive, so you absolutely have to consider it very seriously. The team has taken a look at it, and they've said that it's a significant change in scope. Maybe the CEO or somebody comes in as, oh, no, we're not going to just Western Europe. We want you to take this project and now we want you to ship sweet potatoes to North America. Well, that's going to be a pretty dramatic change to our project. How are we going to handle that in change control? So again, this project triangle allows you to go back and negotiate, that you can go back to that person that initiated, said, you know what, as soon as you do that, now, if you still want us to hit those things, the next thing we need to do is throw resources at it or reduce our scope. You know, could we do a phased implementation of this project? So we will do time and cost. Maybe we'll stick to delivering our project in Western Europe. And yeah, your move to North America, great idea. We're going to do that as a separate phase after this project. So it's really important to understand how you can continue to keep a line of sight to those priorities.
This really kind of hit something with me, Annie, around, you know, possibly getting change requests from senior leaders who don't understand a lot of what's going on in the project, and you know, just kind of, I want this done, so get it done. I think they would appreciate a tool like this to give the project manager some ammunition in a respectful and great way to say, okay, but this is the implications, rather than, being put on the spot, feeling like you just have to do what your boss or your senior leader is telling you to do and then deal with the repercussions of going over scope, over budget later.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yep. No, absolutely true, because that's what I find dealing with most senior executives. They want everything yesterday.
Mhm. Yeah, it leaves project managers out there exposed.
On the whole team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple more resources when it comes to talking about, managing expectations and stuff is we have a template here, a document that you can download off the Miro board. If you just select it and do that download piece, it's one of the things that we've developed. Quite frankly, it's taken decades to perfect this, but it's really talking through what are the roles and responsibilities of a sponsor, a project manager, a business process owner. So again, when we talked about those, the vice president of potato profitability, that would be a process owner, and subject matter experts. So it's meant to be generic, that you could go and at least, again, you're not starting with a blank page, and see which of those different roles have you got them covered off. Another piece is we had a great conversation last time we did one of these sessions about RACI and DACI and RC and those kind of things. And actually, Kimbra from H&R Block, who's going to be presenting actually in June at our next VMUG event, H&R has produced this RACI template in the Miroverse that we really highly recommend. It's really functional. It's not as confusing as kind of those grid type RACI charts. It lets you show relationships between different resources. It's another key thing that we highly recommend when it comes to stakeholders. Then the other couple of resources that we have is we've actually got two templates that are in the Miroverse. We have a scope of work one, so it has incorporated in it that priority triangle again in Miro format, and as also a bunch of other things of how you take and start translating and getting more comprehensive scope. And we also have a project timeline builder template. So this is really how you translate your scope into a critical path and really validate that timeline. Make sure your team understands what they're trying to develop in their project, and that they have the input to be able to validate the critical path. Make sure your deadline is actually achievable. So those combination of those two things, and then you would move into, your task management in, tools like Asana and Trello and Jira, those kinds of things. And then lastly, I would really encourage you, feel free to reach out. And if we'd love to hear about what your challenges are in project management, and maybe offer you some suggestions of different things in Miro that you can use to really build collaboration and teamwork in your projects.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of a very brief introduction to some stakeholder pieces.
You can tell from the way you said that your checklist, your doc there took like 20 years to create. There's so much to learn and understand about this, but I think that's one of the great benefits of the game board is it puts it down into bite-sized chunks that most people can understand at a glance.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a bit more time. John, do we have any questions from folks?
Yeah, we can use the Q&A space down on the board. Annie is just kind of flying down around that right now, but we have a smallish group here today. So if anyone wants to pop off of mute and have any questions for Annie, we'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, fair enough. There is a lot of material there, Robert. But the board will be open, like to come back to, and as I say, feel free to book a call in that link on the website. If you've got some specific questions, I'm more than happy to. We're definitely trying to refine how we're managing the game board and what we're utilizing in Miro. So we'd love to hear from you if you've got some specific challenges that you're trying to address.
One of the things I'd add, Annie, as well, is that the board is so visible that it's companies are using it as a communication tool, and it speeds up the project briefing, because you can say this is exactly where we are on the board, and people can see where you've come from and where you need to go, so how far you are along any of the legs. And the beauty about the triangle is other stakeholders actually get to see the priorities of other stakeholders, whereas before they're just focusing on what my priority is, and regardless of the others. And we're finding that it creates a lot more clarification, and it opens up that discussion to collaborate. And I see now. Oh yes, yeah. Now I see what you're trying to do. So it opens those discussions.
Yeah, that is very true, Mel.
I think in that same light, it makes the game board a great diagnostic tool for mid-flight projects. It's just fantastic. Where are we? Where did it go wrong? If we're going to fix it, let's go back a few steps or go back to the start, whatever might be required. No one likes to go back to the start, but honestly, you've been involved in those projects that just need to be tossed out the window and restarted. It's not overly rare.
Good point, because on some of the projects that myself and Annie's worked on, we've gone in where they're in the middle of a project, and then what we might do is we might just close that phase of it, close it off, and do the reflect part, and then start another phase of the same project, or go in where they're in the middle of implementation and forget about the two legs and just dive in there to help them. And that's worked quite well, because they can see when they close a phase, when we do retrospectives, how people have learned not to do things and what was the blockages that got them there. So it can be used at any stage of a project. It doesn't have to start at square one and work its way around.
Yeah,
True
sure.
story.
I'm gonna turn my camera on. Say hi.
Hey,
Hello.
there he is.
All right. I've been using just a very simple feature prioritization tool. High value, low effort, high effort, low value. Working with stakeholders to figure out like key for the MVP and what to save for later. It's also engaging. They're using Miro. They're building, moving post-its around. So I found that helpful. But I think these new tools, I need to digest this. There's a lot here we shared today.
Yes, it is. It is. It's one of actually the things that we're trying to shoot for, and that's why we're so keen to get people's feedback. Is we also want to make it simple, because it's one of the things that Mel and I have learned, because we've done a number of game board implementations in organizations. It's not a linear thing. People are not going to go through and do like all 21 different steps. Every organization is going to be a little bit different. And they need to kind of do the key things that's going to bring them success. So it's very much like you said, Robert, if those feature lists, right, if that's what's getting you where you want to go, those are the kind of things you've got to implement. And organizations can only absorb so much change. Some of them have very immature project processes at all. Like, I mean, honest to heavens, we've had a couple of clients that just defining what a project is a watershed moment. Like, it's just because they go from one extreme to the other, that everything's a project or nothing's a project. So just even being able to do that and sort through some major priorities can be a huge epiphany for them.
Yeah.
And another, Robert, you were talking about kind of the 2x2 matrices you use for prioritization, effort and impact or whatever they're going to be. We've had some great success using those same kinds of tools. And something new that I'm trying out is to break the process of placing items on that 2x2 matrix, taking each axis individually and do an agile exercise called relative sizing. So it not only forces them to place their solution or their problem on a continuum, but then it says, look at the one you've got. Is the next one higher or lower than that? And it really forces people to think, much in the same way that the triangle forces people to see what other people is thinking and get into those discussions. So doing the relative sizing on both axes to get into your prioritization, make it a little bit better is quite an effective technique.
For sure.
Okay, I'm going to pull, Tom, you came off mute, so you can feel free to talk. I'm just going to pull us on the board to our retrospective because we got about 5 minutes to go. So feel free to let the questions, stories run wild. If you have a story of a project that went sideways on you and anything that we talked about here makes you reflect back on how all that might have been avoided with some conversations and good modeling up front. The retrospective, we're trying out a new one. So what have you liked? What have you learned? What did we lack? And what did you long for? What do you want to see more of? And either from Annie or at a next Miro event that we host, because we love having a wide variety of topics. And we've had some really great ones lately, including some panel discussions and getting some experts on agile and lean and product design and all kinds of great stuff. And then there's a little survey down below on a scale of 0 to 10. Drag the dot for how much you would recommend this to a colleague, and then recommend it to those colleagues. Let's get our numbers up, get some more people enjoying this stuff, because tons of fun, better with more, but it's just such great information that Annie shared, and Mel too, kicking in with the great stories and some background. I'll just bring our attention to one more thing as folks kind of participate in that retro, and that retro will be up for the next week or so as we leave this board open. So if you want to come back and provide us with some more information, that would be very much appreciated. Wanted to talk a bit about some of the support that's out there for Miro. First of all, being the Miro community. Community.miro.com is a great resource to go ask questions, to request new features, to learn from what other folks have done. There's some super talented people in the community that pretty much visit many times a day, so your questions don't go unanswered for too long. And it's up to almost 20,000 members, which is crazy. It's not even been a year, I don't think, since the community started rocking. It maybe is right around a year, but that's impressive growth. So impressive. It's fantastic. Of course, events.miro.com hopefully is how all of you found out about this particular event. You can go there. Once you sign up for an event, you kind of get into that chapter's mailing group, and hopefully you'll see all the notifications as we announce our events, typically about 2 weeks before they launch. But we're always open to feedback. If earlier warning would make people more likely to come to the events, then we'll get some earlier warnings out there. Finally, the Miroverse. What a resource this is turning out to be. Miro has always been great for user-driven content, but with the Miroverse now, it is a great opportunity to go in there and not only see functional tools and templates, but also to get some inspiration for your designs, because you don't work in Miro for too long before you start to see all the customization. You want to make things have your own look and feel, have your own colors, your layouts, everything you want. Miroverse, I visited a couple of times a week just for that inspiration to see what people are up to. Sometimes I'll grab a template and then switch a few things around, move it around, switch the wording and make it work for me. That's what it's all about. Annie's got a couple of templates up there that she was showing the links for earlier. I've got a couple up there that are more like lean tools with more coming. I think typically they're launching between 50 and 70 new templates, new posts in the Miroverse a month. So it's just growing and growing, and we're seeing what all the great folks out there are doing with Miro to make it such a wonderful and successful tool. And did you know that through the Miro community, we have a challenge going on right now, and it's a retrospective challenge. If you have a template that you've built for retrospectives, or you see this word challenge and you see that maybe there's some swag on the line as a prize, and there's a community voted best, there's a Miro panel voted best. There's all kinds of way to get some cool stuff from Miro here. If you want those socks or that, what do they call the plug caps that go on the back of your phone? You want one of those that says Miro? Hey, get a response in here for our Miro design template. Yeah, they're accepting submissions now, and it closes at some point. I don't have that right in front of me, but don't wait too long because then you miss out.
I think it closes later in June.
Later in June. Okay, so you got a couple of weeks maybe. Okay, and then we just also kind of highlight down here some of the new chapters that have been opening up. And so this is our virtual chapter for North America. There's also a European, an APAC, Latin America. Those are kind of the virtual chapters that have opened up now. And then local, more localized chapters are starting to pop up all over. We have DC, LA, New York City. We got Austin, Texas, San Francisco, San Diego, Baltimore. New ones opening up in Cleveland, in Kansas City, and in Richmond. It's all over the place. If you want to bring a local presence, a Miro presence in your city, get a hold of Natalie. Natalie's still here. Look at her great picture. She's around. She can help get set up. We're always looking for expanding, not Greater Seattle area. Tom, I think that sounds like you were volunteering for that one.
Yeah, there's
Nope,
your calling.
yeah, Seattle would be great. Not too far from us up here, just north of you in Canada. Voluntold, yeah, that's right. Let's get our priority going and manage expectations of all the stakeholders. So yeah, it's there's every opportunity to start hosting these kind of events in your local chapter. And from a personal standpoint, what I have learned from all of the various speakers that we've had is it's worth its weight in gold for what I get out of this experience. And the Miro community is unbelievably cool. Every time we get a chance to interact with other people in the Miro community, everyone's open, everyone's super into collaboration. And when you have a community built on collaboration, it's, guess what, collaborative. So yeah, any way you can connect in, the friendly faces, the things I learned, both about how people are using Miro, and then in general about just what they do in their business and how cool it is has been awesome. So that's about all we got for today. Look at that, minute over. All right. Thanks again, Annie. This is a fantastic presentation. Every time I work on these sweet potatoes, I build an even cooler one. My creation from this one has been my favorite so far. Look at that. Crazy. Thanks for coming, everybody.